Today we're going to examine an interesting observation coming from a region of Eurasia near the Black Sea. According to recent personal accounts from the area, the situation there is currently calm and peaceful. Travelers from different parts of Europe are reportedly visiting the region for holidays, enjoying a surprisingly low cost of living combined with a relatively high quality of life. Another notable detail is that Russian is widely spoken among local populations and visitors alike. At first glance, this kind of information may seem unrelated to Iraqi Dinar followers or to Iraq's economic outlook. However, when we take a broader analytical perspective, observations about stability, travel patterns, living costs, and cultural or linguistic influences in the Eurasian region can actually provide useful context for understanding the wider geopolitical and economic environment that affects Iraq, energy markets, regional trade, and ultimately currency stability. Let's begin with the most immediate point mentioned in the observation: the region is currently calm and peaceful. In financial analysis, stability, whether political, social, or security-related, is one of the most critical factors influencing economic confidence. When regions around the world demonstrate calm conditions and normal daily life, including tourism and cross-border travel, it often reflects a broader sense of geopolitical balance. Investors, businesses, and governments closely monitor these signals. For Iraq, regional and global stability is particularly important. Iraq's economy remains deeply connected to international energy markets, trade corridors, and geopolitical relationships that extend across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. When areas of Eurasia maintain peaceful conditions and attract tourism from across Europe, it indicates that transportation networks, energy routes, and economic interactions are functioning normally. These are all indirect indicators that global economic activity is continuing without major disruptions. Another element worth analyzing is the mention that people from across Europe are traveling to this region for holidays. Tourism flows are often an underrated economic indicator. When large numbers of travelers are willing to visit a region, it usually suggests that transportation infrastructure is functioning, security risks are perceived as manageable, and consumer confidence remains relatively strong. Tourism also reflects disposable income levels across Europe and signals that individuals still have the financial capacity to travel internationally. Why does this matter in the context of Iraqi Dinar analysis? Because Iraq's long-term economic strategy involves integration into broader global economic systems. Tourism trends in Eurasia may not directly affect Iraq today, but they provide insight into the health of regional economies that are connected through trade, energy demand, and investment flows. A healthy European tourism environment often corresponds with stable economic activity across the continent, which in turn influences energy demand. Since Iraq is one of the world's major oil exporters, shifts in European economic activity can eventually influence oil prices and government revenues in Baghdad. Another interesting detail from the observation is the comment about the cost of living being unbelievably low, while the quality of life remains relatively high. This combination often appears in regions where local currencies are weaker relative to major global currencies, such as the euro or the US dollar. Lower living costs can attract foreign visitors, retirees, and digital workers who seek affordable destinations with decent infrastructure and cultural amenities. From an economic standpoint, such environments often reflect specific monetary and structural conditions. A lower cost of living may result from lower wages, favorable exchange rates, or government policies designed to attract tourism and foreign investment. For Iraqi Dinar observers, this serves as an interesting comparison point when discussing Iraq's own currency and economic development trajectory. Iraq has historically faced challenges in stabilizing purchasing power and managing inflation while also maintaining economic growth. The Iraqi Dinar operates within a managed exchange rate framework, meaning the central bank plays a significant role in maintaining stability. In contrast, some Eurasian economies with lower living costs may experience more currency volatility or structural economic differences that result in lower price levels. However, low-cost environments are not necessarily negative. In fact, they can sometimes attract international capital if infrastructure, safety, and services are adequate. Many regions around the world have developed tourism-based economies precisely because their cost structures are attractive to international visitors. For Iraq, there are lessons within this model. Over the long term, Iraq has the potential to diversify its economy beyond oil by developing sectors such as tourism, agriculture, logistics, and regional trade. The country has significant cultural and historical sites, including ancient civilizations that could attract global visitors if infrastructure and security conditions continue to improve. Observing how other regions successfully attract tourism while maintaining affordability provides insight into possible development strategies. Another point raised in the observation is that many people in the region speak Russian. Linguistic influence often reflects historical, political, or economic relationships. In many parts of Eurasia, Russian remains widely used as a regional communication language due to historical connections dating back to the Soviet era and ongoing economic interactions with neighboring states. From a geopolitical perspective, language distribution can sometimes reveal economic networks. Regions where Russian remains widely spoken often maintain trade connections with Russian-speaking markets or former Soviet states. These connections influence regional commerce, energy pipelines, transportation corridors, and financial relationships. For Iraqi Dinar analysts, understanding these broader networks matters because global economic systems are deeply interconnected. Oil and energy markets, which are central to Iraq's economy, depend heavily on supply chains that extend across Eurasia, Europe, and Asia. Regions near the Black Sea play a strategic role in energy transportation routes, shipping lanes, and trade corridors connecting Europe to Central Asia and the Middle East. When these areas remain stable and active with tourism and economic life, it often suggests that major trade pathways remain functional. Disruptions in such regions could potentially impact shipping costs, energy logistics, or international trade flows. Therefore, observations about calm conditions and economic activity in these areas can indirectly support global economic stability. Now let's connect these broader observations back to Iraq and the Iraqi dinar. Iraq's currency stability depends on several key factors: oil revenue, government fiscal discipline, central bank policy, political stability, and integration with global financial systems. None of these factors operate in isolation. They are influenced by the international environment in which Iraq participates. For example, stable global trade networks contribute to predictable energy demand. When European economies remain active, tourism flows remain strong, and transportation corridors across Eurasia operate normally. Energy consumption tends to remain steady. That stability helps support global oil markets, which in turn supports revenue streams for oil exporting countries such as Iraq. In the short term, observations about peaceful conditions in Eurasian travel destinations do not directly change Iraq's exchange rate policy. The Central Bank of Iraq determines currency management based on domestic economic conditions, foreign currency reserves, inflation levels, and fiscal policy coordination with the Iraqi government. However, these observations still matter as part of the larger global economic picture. Stability across multiple regions contributes to predictable economic activity, which supports energy demand and international trade. For a country like Iraq that depends heavily on oil exports, predictable global economic conditions are generally beneficial. Looking toward the medium and long term, the broader lesson here involves economic diversification and regional connectivity. Many countries across Eurasia have focused on creating environments that attract tourism, investment, and international visitors. Low living costs combined with good quality of life can become a competitive advantage in the global economy. Iraq, with its large young population and strategic geographic location, has the potential to follow a similar path over time. The country sits at the crossroads of major trade routes connecting the Gulf region, Europe, and Asia. Projects related to transportation infrastructure, logistics corridors, and regional connectivity have been discussed within Iraq's long-term economic planning. If these projects develop successfully, Iraq could eventually benefit from increased regional trade flows, improved logistics networks, and greater economic diversification. In such a scenario, the Iraqi dinar stability would likely be supported not only by oil exports, but also by broader economic activity across multiple sectors. Another factor worth mentioning is the role of perception in economics. When people travel freely, speak multiple languages, and participate in international tourism, it reflects openness and cultural exchange. These conditions often contribute to economic growth by attracting businesses, investors, and entrepreneurs. Iraq has been working in recent years to improve its international reputation and economic environment. Efforts to modernize the banking system, strengthen financial regulations, and attract foreign investment have been ongoing topics in Iraq's economic discussions. While challenges remain, progress in these areas could gradually enhance investor confidence. From a currency perspective, confidence is extremely important. Stable currencies are usually supported by trust in economic institutions, predictable policy frameworks, and sustainable revenue sources. Iraq's central bank has made efforts to maintain foreign currency reserves and manage the exchange rate in a way that reduces volatility. Observing how other regions maintain stable environments for tourism and economic activity provides useful examples of how stability can translate into economic benefits. While Iraq's circumstances are unique, the broader principle remains the same: stability encourages growth, and growth supports currency confidence. In summary, the observation from the Eurasian region near the Black Sea highlights several key themes that matter in global economic analysis. Peaceful conditions, active tourism, affordable living costs, and multilingual populations all suggest functioning economic networks and stable regional environments. For Iraqi Dinar followers, these kinds of observations serve as reminders that currency value and economic development are influenced by global conditions as well as domestic policy. Iraq's economic future will continue to depend on responsible fiscal management, stable governance, diversified economic growth, and integration into international markets. Short-term developments in distant regions may not directly change Iraq's exchange rate policy, but they contribute to the broader global environment in which Iraq operates. When multiple regions demonstrate stability and economic activity, it generally supports predictable trade flows and steady energy demand, both of which are important for Iraq's economy. Over the long term, Iraq's economic progress will likely depend on continued reforms, investment in infrastructure, improvements in governance, and expansion beyond oil dependency. Observing economic models from other regions can provide useful insights into how countries attract tourism, manage living costs, and maintain quality of life while participating in global trade. For those who follow the Iraqi Dinar closely, the most responsible approach is to focus on verified economic indicators, central bank policy decisions, and credible financial data rather than speculation or unrealistic expectations. Currency movements typically occur gradually and are shaped by complex economic forces rather than sudden events. Thank you for watching Iraqi Dinar News. If you want to stay informed with responsible, factual, and balanced updates about Iraq's economy and the Iraqi Dinar, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And as always, please remember that this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial or investment advice.